All right, math superstars. So we have figured out how much fuel it's going to take for your trip. We have figured out that you're not going to be sleeping in the car, that you are going to be spending nights in hotels. So next up, we're going to figure out the food costs. And so what I have is I have a food cost calculation here. And so we have to figure out a few things about your trip before we figure out food costs here. So first one is we have to figure out how many days is your trip going to be. So I figured out how many nights the trip will be. So it's going to be 6 nights, but my trip is going to take 7 days total because I'm going to put in 7 days for this trip. And it's going to give you some calculations for breakfast, lunch, and dinner next. And so these calculations are the average per person costs for each one of these categories. So for breakfast, it's going to be about $4 per day per person. So for lunch, it's $7 per day per person. And for dinner, it is going to be $12 per day per person. So what's going to happen is that means for one day, if I add up these costs, 4 plus 7 plus 12, it's going to cost $23 for food for one day for one person. So now on my trip, if it's just going to be for one person, I can do $23 times 7 days. And I can get a food costs. My food cost here for one day is going to be $161. But oops, I got to feed 3 people on my trip because that's what I rolled in the number die. So I got to feed 3 people. So one person is going to cost $161. So for 3 people, if I do times 3, it's going to give me a cost of $483 for food. And so I need to make sure that I'm going to type in my total food costs. So that's going to be for, and I'm going to make a little note, this is going to be for 3 people for 7 days. So you make sure you type in that little tidbit of information and make sure you press enter to save it in the cell. And then I'm going to type in my food costs here. My total food cost is going to be $483 and press enter. And you have figured out that you're not going to starve your family on this road trip experience. So next up, you're going to figure out the fun costs.